Good evening, aspirants. Welcome to Daily News Analysis of Shankar IAS Academy. Today's date is 13th of March 2024. Displayed here are the articles that we are going to discuss today. So without much delay, let us get into the first news article discussion. Look at this article. This article from Business Standards is actually an interview given by economist Mr. Rangarajan. He talks about different methodologies and approaches to measure poverty in India and how to overcome its shortcomings. In this backdrop, let us go through different poverty estimations of India. See, there are two ways to measure poverty. Firstly, relative poverty and then absolute poverty. Poverty estimates in advanced economies are based on the calculation of relative poverty, in which the average standard of living is used as a reference point. People are counted as poor if they cannot maintain this level. But in India, poverty is estimated at absolute level or the minimum money required for the subsistence. The approach used in India to estimate poverty is known as the poverty line approach. This approach specifies a minimum expenditure or income required to purchase a basket of goods and services necessary to satisfy basic human needs. If the poverty line is calculated based on the minimum level of income required to afford basic necessities, then it is known as the income-based poverty lines. The Tendulkar Committee, Rangarajan Committee and the Lagdawala Committee have all proposed income-based poverty lines in India, and if the poverty line is based on the minimum level of expenditure required to meet the basic needs and maintain a certain standard of living, then it is known as the expenditure-based poverty line. In India, the official poverty definition and the numbers are estimated based on the Consumption Expenditure Survey conducted by National Statistical Office. The last published data of CES is available for 2011 to 12, while the government had junked the CES conducted in 2017 to 18. Currently, the official poverty definition and numbers are estimated based on the Household Consumption Expenditure Survey, which is conducted by the National Statistical Office (NSO) every 5 years. Previously, this task was undertaken by the Planning Commission before it was replaced by the Niti Aayog. Apart from these methods, there is another new way of measuring poverty known as the National Multidimensional Poverty Index (MPI). The index is based on the Alkire-Foster methodology and has three equally weighted dimensions, which includes health, education and standard of living. These three dimensions are represented by 12 indicators. The report is released by Niti Aayog. So here raises a question, which method is best? According to economist Mr. Rangarajan, poverty line estimated based on the Household Consumption Expenditure Survey (HCES) best reflects the exact status of poverty in India. So that's all about this poverty estimation. With this, let us move on to the next news article. Look at this news article. The Food Corporation of India reports that as of the beginning of March, there were 9.7 million tons of wheat reserves stored in the state warehouses. Comparing to 11.7 million tons of wheat in March 2023, the value is very low. So the state has decided to sell record volumes to boost domestic supplies and lower the local prices. In this context, let us learn about Food Corporation of India from the prelims perspective. See, the Food Corporation of India is a statutory body which was set up in 1965. It was established under Food Corporation Act 1964 under the Ministry of Consumer Affairs, Food and Public Distribution. Know that this was set up at the time of major shortage of grains, especially wheat, in the country. The function of Food Corporation of India is to buy, store, transport, distribute and sell food grains all over the country. It does this function through a nationwide network of offices. The organization of Food Corporation of India includes a headquarters in New Delhi and 5 zonal offices, 25 regional offices and 170 district offices throughout India. Now let us see the main objective of Food Corporation of India. They are to conduct effective price support operations in the country and to distribute food grains throughout the country for the public distribution system and to maintain satisfactory levels of operational and buffer stocks of food grains to ensure national food security. These are the basics about Food Corporation of India. One of the important initiatives of the Ministry of Consumer Affairs, Food and Public Distribution to ensure food security is the Open Market Sales Scheme, that is OMSS. Food Corporation of India plays a leading role in this scheme. So how does OMSS work? Before seeing this, we should know about the food distribution system in India. Firstly, the procurement of wheat and paddy for the central pool will happen in the Rabi and Kharif marketing seasons. This is done by FCI and other state corporations. The main aim is to ensure food security in the country and to meet the needs of National Food Security Act. Moreover, know that these purchases are done at a minimum support price to ensure income security to farmers. From From this central pool, the government has to set aside grains for 80 crore beneficiaries under National Food Security Act (NFSA), as we saw already. Then out of remaining grains from the pool, Food Corporation of India maintains a buffer stock and a marketable surplus. Here is where the open market sales scheme will come into picture. Under OMSS, the Food Corporation of India from time to time sells surplus food grains in the open market to traders, bulk consumers, retail chains and so on at a predetermined prices. It was done through weekly auction carried on the platform of National Commodity and Derivatives Exchanges Limited (NCDEX). Know that NCDEX is a commodity exchange platform in India. This provides a platform for trading various agricultural and other commodities. In this auction, the open market bidders can buy specified quantities at the prices. See, these prices are set at the start of the action cycle and being revised routinely. Moreover, the states are also allowed to procure food grains through OMSS for their needs beyond what they get from the central pool under the National Food Security Act. So the central idea of OMSS is to regulate and improve the domestic supply of grains, especially wheat and rice in India. This is done to bring down their prices in the open market. Moreover, it is often used as a measure to curb food grain inflation in the country. So that's all about Food Corporation of India and OMSS. With this, let us move on to the next news article. Look at this news article. The news is that the latest data on the international arms transfer has been released by the Stockholm International Peace Research Institute (SIPRI). As per this report, India was the world's top arms importer between 2019 to 23. In this background, let us learn few important facts from the article. Firstly, as I said earlier, the report stated that India was the largest importer of arms globally during the period of 2019 to 23. The arms import has been increased 4.7% compared to the previous period of 2014 to 18. This growth is partially attributed to emergency procurements made in the response to the prolonged military standoff with China. Secondly, the report highlighted a changing dynamic in arms suppliers. See, historically, India's primary weapons supplier was Russia, but it accounted only for 36% of India's arms import. This period between 2019 to 23 marked the first 5-year span since 1960 to 64 where Russian deliveries comprised less than half of India's arms import. This reduction is primarily due to India's increasing diversification of sources, which now include Western countries as well as domestic manufacturers. Thirdly, there is a growing role of Western suppliers. France and United States are emerging as the key suppliers to India, collectively accounting for 46% of its arms imports. This trend is expected to continue with significant contract in the pipeline, such as India's procurement of 31 armed MQ-9B Sky Guardian drones from the US and 26 Rafale M fighters from France. Fourthly, the report highlighted China's dominance in supplying Pakistan. China plays a pivotal role as the primary arms supplier to Pakistan, with a substantial 61% of its exports directed towards Islamabad. Additionally, China exports 11% of its arms to Bangladesh, further solidifying its influence on this region. Apart from this, the report highlighted the global arms trade landscape. Some of the top importers include India, followed by Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Ukraine, Pakistan, Japan, Egypt, Australia, South Korea, and China. Some of the top exporters include United States, leads with a 42% share, followed by France and Russia. Europe accounted for over half of the arms exports by European countries, with the United States being the primary supplier. This reflects Europe's strong military-industrial capacity, which comes against the backdrop of the war in Ukraine. That's all about this article. With this, let us move on to the next news article. Look at this editorial article. Recent events in India, like the inauguration of new parliament building and Ram temple by the Prime Minister, create questions about the merging of political and religious roles in leadership. There is a concern whether the future cities will prioritize religion over work, industry and modernism, which have traditionally been key aspects of our urban development. The estimated 85,000 crore expenditure on infrastructure in Ayodhya raises questions about whether religious cities will dominate India's urban development. Traditional colonial cities were focused on trade and taxation, while new cities like Ayodhya, Kasi and Pushkar are being proposed based on religion. Major corporations are investing in smaller towns like Ayodhya indicating a shift towards integrating religious and economic interest. The new challenge in India is to align urban development with the predominant religion, moving away from the previous secular approach. This is what the article is trying to convey. In this context, let us discuss about effects of urbanization on Indian poor with the help of our mains answer writing practice. Look at this mains question. Does urbanization lead to more segregation and or marginalization of the poor in Indian metropolises? It comes under GS paper 1. In this answer, we must discuss two things. Firstly, how urbanization leads to segregation of poor, and then how urbanization leads to marginalization of poor. So we shall divide the body part of the answer into two parts. Let us start with the introduction. In the intro part, we shall give an overview about urbanization and its problems related to poor. Now look at the intro. Segregation of certain population in Indian cities is a common phenomenon due to the spin-off effect of rapid urbanization. The most common process of segregation is through the in-migration of poor into their community neighborhoods and or the opt-migration of richer households into their communities. This segregation and consequently marginalization of poor among urban population is due to many socio-economic and even political factors. In this way, you can give your own introduction. Now moving on to see the body part of the answer. Here we shall discuss how urbanization leads to segregation of poor and how it leads to marginalization. Starting with urbanization leading to segregation of poor. Firstly, income disparities. Urbanization often results into income inequalities with limited affordable housing options for the poor, leading to spatial segregation. Secondly, inadequate housing policies. Poorly planned urbanization and inadequate housing policies can lead to the concentration of slums. India has a population of 65.49 million people living in 17.3 million slums households across the country. Nearly 65% of Indian cities have adjoining slums where people live in small houses adjacent to each other. Thirdly, employment opportunities. The concentration of employment opportunities in specific urban areas can force the poor to settle in marginalized neighborhoods due to job proximity. Fourthly, social stigma. Social biases and stigma can play a role in segregating the poor as they are often pushed into the peripheries of urban centers. Now moving on to see urbanization leading to marginalization of poor. Firstly, lack of social services. Inadequate provision of essential services like healthcare, education and sanitation in the urban slums further marginalizes the urban poor. The lack of affordable housing options forces the economically disadvantaged into informal settlements and slums on the fringes of cities. These areas are characterized by inadequate infrastructure, limited access to basic services like clean water and sanitation, and substandard living conditions. Secondly, land displacement. Urban development projects often displace poor communities without proper compensation or alternate housing options. Thirdly, health disparities. Overcrowded and unsanitary living conditions in slums contribute to health issues with limited access to quality health care, exacerbating the problem. Fourthly, social discrimination. The urban poor may face discrimination and social exclusion based on their economic status and background. Even though the urban poor faces many challenges like this, there are some other benefits for them in urbanization. For example, participation in gig economy and getting flexible work opportunities for semi-skilled. The anonymity offered by urban centers help many poor to integrate and access opportunities as equals, leaving behind their caste and other discriminatory identities. Government policies such as Amrut 2.0, Swachh Bharat Mission Urban, PM Swanidhi for street vendors, etc. are also focused on urban poor. Urban areas offer access to microfinance and financial services, aiding economic mobility for marginalized people. Now we can move on to see the conclusion. So urbanization in India is a dynamic force that demands careful consideration and deliberate action. To address urban poverty and segregation, India needs to focus on inclusive and sustainable urban planning that incorporates lessons from slums and informal settlements. Thus, in the spirit of new urban agenda, India should plan for right to city as the bedrock of inclusive urbanization. This can be done by developing common areas, better investment in public provisions of health and education, and public housing for urban poor. That's all about this mains answer writing practice. With this, let us move on to the next news article. Look at this article. Recently, in an interview for Indian Express, India's leading astrophysicist Dr. Somak Roy Chowdhury opened up about India's need to have space station and own GPS system. With this backdrop, we shall understand in brief about India's GPS system and India's plan to have space station and also about other countries' space station in detail. So let's start from understanding the basics of GPS. GPS, that is Global Positioning System, revolutionized navigation by providing accurate positioning information worldwide. This was developed by United States Department of Defense, and it employs a network of satellites orbiting the Earth to transmit signals. These signals are received by GPS receivers on land, sea, or air, enabling users to determine their exact location, velocity, and time. GPS has diverse applications, from guiding travelers and tracking vehicles to facilitating precise timing for financial transactions and scientific research. Its usability in smartphones, vehicles, and various devices underscore its indispensable role in modern life, enhancing safety, efficiency, and convenience across countless domains. Several countries operate their own global navigation satellite system, that is GNSS, alongside the GPS. For example, Russia is having GLONASS, that is Global Navigation Satellite System. Similarly, European Union has Galileo, China has Beidou Navigation Satellite System, and India has NAVIC, that is Navigation with Indian Constellation. So these systems provide positioning and timing services globally or regionally. Now coming to the Indian version of GPS, that is NAVIC. See, first of all, it is expanded as Navigation with Indian Constellation. Know that NAVIC is the operational name of the Indian Regional Navigation Satellite System, that is IRNSS. Now you may ask, what is IRNSS? See, as the name suggests, it is an independent regional navigation satellite system developed by India. Now with this basic information, let us see in detail about NAVIC. Firstly, let us see the area of coverage. See, it is designed to provide accurate position information to users in India as well as the region extending up to 1500 kilometers from its boundary. And this is the primary service area of NAVIC. There is also an extended area. It lies between primary service area and area enclosed by the rectangle from the latitude 30 degree south to 50 degree north, longitude 30 degree east to 130 degree east. Secondly, let us see about the satellite system. The constellation currently consists of 7 satellites that have been in orbit since 2018, with an additional satellite on the ground as standby. Out of the 7 satellites, 4 of them are located in geostationary orbit (GEO), and the remaining 3 satellites are in inclined geosynchronous orbit (GSO). I have given the satellites in this table. Just give it a glance. Thirdly, let us see about the service provided. See, IRNSS provides 2 types of services, namely standing positioning service, which is provided to all the users, and restricted service, which is an encrypted service provided only to the authorized users. The IRNSS system is expected to provide a positioning accuracy of better than 20 meters in the primary service area. Finally, let us see about the applications. See, IRNSS operate in the L-band frequency of 1176.45 MHz and S-band frequency of 2492.025 MHz. So it provides a position accuracy better than 20 meters in the primary service area. Unlike GPS, which is solely dependent on L-band, NAVIC's utilization of dual frequencies make it more accurate for positioning. And because of this advantage, NAVIC has many applications. Having discussed about IRNSS in detail, let's now move on to see the ISS and India's plan to have one space station. See, Indian space station ISS orbits Earth at an average altitude of approximately 420 kilometers above the Earth's surface, which orbits Earth every 90 minutes, traveling at a speed of approximately 28,000 kilometers per hour. It spans the length of a football field and houses a crew of 6 astronauts conducting scientific research in the fields like biology, physics, astronomy, and meteorology. The Indian space station is operated by a collaboration between NASA, Roscosmos, ESA, JAXA, and CSA. Now let us see about India's plan for space station. India plans to have one space station by 2035, which would weigh 20 tons and maintain an orbit of approximately 400 kilometers above the Earth, where astronauts could stay for 15 to 20 days. And in addition to this, NASA and ISRO have agreed to a joint mission to the International Space Station in 2024. So that's all about this article. With this, let us move on to the next news article. Look at this text and context page article. India is working on using nuclear power to become energy independent, but managing nuclear waste is a big challenge. The country does recycle of used fuel, but not all waste can be turned into fuel again. This leftover waste must be stored safely to avoid accidents. As India improves its nuclear technology, figuring out how to handle this waste properly is very important. Now let's learn more about nuclear waste and how it's managed. Firstly, what is nuclear waste? In a nuclear reactor, atoms of certain elements gets hit by neutrons, causing them to break apart. This process creates energy and new elements. Some of these new elements can't undergo further fission, making them nuclear waste. So what are the sources of nuclear waste? The primary source of nuclear waste is spent nuclear fuel, which is produced inside the nuclear reactors during the power generation. Spent fuel contains radioactive elements including unused uranium and plutonium, as well as various fission products generated during the nuclear reaction. During reactor operations, various materials become contaminated with radioactive substances. This includes reactor components such as control rods, pipes, and coolant systems. These components also become part of radioactive waste. Radioactive materials are used in various medical and industrial applications such as cancer treatment, radiography, and sterilization. The disposal of radioactive waste from these applications contribute to the overall nuclear waste. Now, the classification of nuclear waste. Nuclear waste is categorized based on its radioactivity level and lifespan. First one is high level waste, that is extremely radioactive and long lived. Second one is low level waste, that is less radioactive and shorter lived. Now we shall see the challenges of nuclear waste management. First is safe storage. Nuclear waste remains highly radioactive for thousands of years, posing health risks to humans and in the environment. Facilities must be designed to prevent leaks and protect the environment. Second is long-term management. Developing and maintaining storage facilities as well as implementing the disposal methods requires significant financial costs. Ensuring the integrity of storage facilities and monitoring the environment for any signs of leakage or contamination over thousands of years is challenging. Third is handling nuclear waste. Spent fuel from reactors is hot and radioactive, so it's stored underwater for several decades until it cools down. Once cooled, it is transferred to dry casks for long-term storage. Meeting stringent regulatory requirements for handling, storing, and disposing of nuclear waste adds complexity to waste management efforts. Lastly, public participation. Public concerns about the safety and the long-term impact of nuclear waste management can lead to opposition and regulatory hurdles. That's all about this nuclear waste management. So with this, we'll move on to the prelims practice question discussion. Look at this question. Consider the following statements regarding National Multidimensional Poverty Index. First statement is it uses 3 dimensions and 12 indicators to measure acute poverty. This statement is correct. It has 3 dimensions including education, health, and standard of living. The second statement is the opening of Jan Dhan accounts by the previously unbanked population will help to improve the India's MPI performance. This statement is also correct. The ownership of a bank account or a post office account is the key to financial inclusion of the unbanked households. So both the statements are correct. So the answer is option C. Next question. Consider the following statements regarding Food Corporation of India. First statement, it is neither a statutory body nor a constitutional body. This statement is incorrect because it is a statutory body set up under Food Corporation of India Act 1964. Second statement is its objective is to maintain satisfactory levels of operational stocks and buffer stocks of food grains to ensure national food security. This statement is correct. Third, it stores food grains only in its own godowns. This statement is incorrect because FCI stores food grains in own godowns and also in godowns hired from Central Warehousing Corporation, State Warehousing Corporations, state government agencies, and private parties. So the first and third statements are incorrect. So the answer is option B. Next question. Which country held the position of the top arms importer globally during the period of 2019 to 23 according to the Stockholm International Peace Research Institute, SIPRI? The answer is option C, India. So this is the quiz question for you today. We need to match the column 1 with the column 2, and they're asking question regarding the 3-stage nuclear program of India. Understand the question and answer it in the comment section. Displayed here is the mains practice question for you today. Understand the question and try to answer it in the comment section. With this, we come to the end of this news article discussion. If you like the video, do like, share and subscribe to Shankar IAS Academy. Thank you so much for watching.